Why does the best-looking ice fishing spot in late spring usually yield absolutely zero fish? Let me ask you a tough question. Are you making the exact same careless mistake today that you made back in January? If you are struggling to catch fish under thinning March ice, I can almost guarantee you are actively scaring them away before you even unzip your coat. Today, we are going to expose the hard truth about why your old reliable fishing habits are completely destroying your chances right now. We are breaking down the number one mistake that spooks fish under the clear, thin ice of late spring. Once you discover this hidden acoustic trap, you will completely change the way you step onto a frozen lake. Do you think you are already quiet enough out there? Stick around, because what we are about to reveal will make you question every single move you make on the ice. Let me know in the comments before we start, what do you think is the loudest thing a fisherman can do? Let us set the scene. You have been waiting all year for this late season bite. March is legendary for massive fish. The sun is shining, the weather is finally comfortable, and you are ready to fill your bucket. This is exactly why this topic is so incredibly critical right now. Most fishermen walk out onto the late spring ice using the exact same old-school habits they learned 30 years ago. They carry over the aggressive, loud, heavy tactics that worked perfectly during the dark, freezing days of midwinter. They do the exact same things, year after year, and wonder why they suddenly hit a massive brick wall when the snow melts. The lake is undergoing a massive physical transformation. The water, the light, and the acoustic properties of the ice are shifting rapidly, but the fisherman stubbornly refuses to change his approach. We are so conditioned by the old methods that we completely ignore the reality beneath our boots. We blame the cold fronts, we blame the barometric pressure, or we just say the fish have lockjaw. But the uncomfortable truth is that the fish are actively feeding. We are just broadcasting our presence so loudly and visibly that we are pushing them out of the zip code. If you want to succeed in March, you have to leave your January mindset at the truck. Imagine you are stepping onto the frozen lake on a crisp morning in late March. The air is still biting cold, but the sun is starting to show that unmistakable spring warmth. You have your heavy plastic sled loaded with all your gear, your auger, your rods, your heater, and your bucket. You start walking out to your favorite spot, dragging that heavy sled right behind you. In January, when you have 2 feet of solid ice and a thick blanket of snow on top, this is completely fine. The snow absorbs the sound. But today, the ice is thinning and the snow cover is entirely gone. The surface is just bare, slick, wet ice. As you drag that hard plastic sled across the frozen surface, it acts like a giant acoustic amplifier. The rumbling sound waves travel directly down into the water column with zero resistance. You might think you are just moving your gear from point A to point B, but to the fish swimming below, it sounds exactly like a freight train rolling directly over their heads. Long before you even reach your fishing spot, the fish have already scattered in every direction. You have effectively ruined the area before you even unzipped your coat. You will sit there for hours, staring at a blank screen, wondering why they are not biting, completely unaware that your loud grand entrance was the very thing that shut down the bite. It is a harsh truth, but you have to stop doing this if you want to catch anything today. Let us talk about the actual structure of the ice right now. Many fishermen do not realize that the ice changes its physical properties as we get deeper into the month of March. Midwinter ice is dense, hard, and solid all the way through. It dampens vibrations naturally. But late-season ice is completely different. It begins to honeycomb. It gets softer on the edges and holds water on the surface. More importantly, it becomes much thinner. This thin, deteriorating layer of ice acts exactly like the tight skin of a snare drum. Every single vibration, every drop tool, every shifted foot is magnified tenfold. When you step heavily on this type of surface, the pressure wave pushes down into the water below with incredible force. Fish have a lateral line system that is designed to pick up on the tiniest vibrations in the water, like the struggle of a dying minnow. When you send a massive, unnatural shockwave through the thin drum of late March ice, you are overloading their sensory organs. It physically stresses them out. They do not just ignore it, they actively flee the area. If you treat late spring ice the same way you treat midwinter ice, you are fighting a losing battle. You have to start thinking of the ice beneath your boots as a massive speaker that broadcasts your every move directly to your target. Once you understand this drum effect, you will naturally start moving with the caution of a bow hunter stalking a deer. There is an old-school mentality that says the only way to find fish is to drill a massive grid of holes the second you get on the ice. We call it making Swiss cheese out of the lake. Back in January, this run and gun method is incredibly effective. You start the gas or electric auger, punch 20 or 30 holes in a wide circle, and then hop from hole to hole until you find an active school. But trying to pull off this exact same strategy under thinning late-season ice is a monumental mistake. Think about the mechanics of drilling. You are grinding metal blades through a giant sounding board, sending a loud, grinding acoustic wave deep into the water. When the water is shallow and the ice is thin, drilling 20 holes at once does not help you find fish. It effectively clears the entire zip code of any living creature. The fish that were suspended comfortably in the area will instantly drop to the bottom or swim hundreds of yards away into the weeds. Instead of bringing the fish to you, you have created a construction zone that no fish wants to be anywhere near. The run and gun method is dead in March. You have to change your approach to a more tactical surgical strike. You need to pick 2 or 3 high-percentage spots based on your past knowledge or contour maps, drill quietly, and then put the auger away. The less you drill, the more fish you will actually keep in the immediate area. Another massive factor that everyone overlooks is the sudden change in light penetration. During the heart of winter, the lake is covered in a thick, heavy blanket of white snow. This snow blocks out almost all the sunlight, creating a dark, dim environment down in the water. Fish get very comfortable in this darkness. Their eyes adjust to the low light, and they feel safe cruising around without being easily spotted by predators. But when March rolls around, that snow cover melts away completely. Suddenly, you just have a giant window of clear ice. The sun beats down directly into the water, illuminating everything like a football stadium. The fish are instantly put on high alert. They feel exposed, vulnerable, and extremely skittish. When you walk over this clear ice, you are no longer a shadowy blur hidden by snow. You are a massive, moving silhouette against a bright sky. The fish can literally look up and see you walking around. If you are stomping around directly over the school in these bright, clear conditions, you are triggering their deepest survival instincts. They will lock their jaws shut and refuse to eat, no matter what kind of expensive bait you drop down to them. You have to recognize that the rules of stealth change completely when the snow disappears. You cannot fish in the bright open water exactly like you fished in the dark depths of January. Let us talk about a habit that almost every single fisherman has, a habit passed down from our grandfathers. As soon as you drill a hole, you grab your skimmer and scoop out every last piece of slush and ice until the hole is perfectly clean and black. It looks great, it keeps your line from freezing to the edges, and it makes it easy to drop your transducer down. But on thin, clear March ice, this is one of the worst things you can possibly do. When you clear that hole completely, you are essentially opening a massive skylight in a dark room. You are sending a concentrated, blazing beam of sunlight straight down into the water column. For a fish that is already feeling anxious because of the melting snow cover, having a sudden spotlight shine down right on top of their head is terrifying. It is an unnatural phenomenon that screams danger. Instead of clearing the hole completely, you need to leave a good amount of that slush right in the water. Just poke a tiny opening through the slush with the handle of your scoop, just big enough to drop your small jig down. Leaving the slush in the hole acts like a curtain. It blocks that intense beam of light and keeps the environment below feeling natural and secure. It might be a little annoying when you are trying to reel in a fish, but I promise you, dealing with a little slush is worth it when it means the difference between catching your limit and going home empty-handed. Continuing with the problem of light, we need to address the issue of your own shadow. This sounds incredibly basic, but it is shocking how many experienced anglers completely ignore it when they are out on the ice. Picture this scenario. You have drilled your hole, you have left the slush in, and you are sitting on your bucket jigging away. But the sun is at your back. Every time you lean forward to check your rod tip, every time you reach down to grab your thermos, you cast a long, moving shadow directly over the hole and the surrounding clear ice. To a fish looking up, a sudden moving shadow means only one thing. It means a predator is circling above, like a bird of prey or a larger fish. Their immediate reaction is to dive for cover or freeze completely. You might actually see them on your sonar screen. They will slowly rise up to look at your bait, and just as they are about to strike, you shift your weight. Your shadow sweeps across the ice, and the fish instantly darts away. You are left scratching your head, wondering if your bait was the wrong color. It was not your bait, it was your shadow. You have to treat your shadow like a physical object that you are trying to hide. Always position yourself so that you are facing the sun, ensuring your shadow falls behind you, far away from your fishing hole. It is a tiny adjustment that requires zero money, but it will dramatically increase your hookup ratio on skittish spring fish. Let us take a serious look down at your feet. Safety is always the absolute priority when you are walking on slick, wet March ice. You absolutely need to wear ice cleats to prevent a terrible fall. But here is the problem that nobody talks about. Those sharp metal spikes crunching into the hard, bare ice create a high-frequency, piercing noise that travels for miles underwater. In the middle of the season, when you have snow to cushion your steps, your cleats sink in quietly. But on bare spring ice, every single step you take sounds like somebody grinding metal gears together right next to the ear of the fish. It is an incredibly unnatural sound that clears out a fishing spot in seconds. Now, I am never going to tell you to take your cleats off and risk a dangerous slip. But you have to completely change the way you walk. You cannot stomp around, shuffle your feet, or march confidently from spot to spot. You have to adopt what we call the ice glide. You place your feet down softly, rolling your step, and minimizing the hard crunch of the metal as much as humanly possible. When you get within 30 feet of your intended fishing hole, you need to slow down even more. Pretend you are walking on glass. If you sound like a marching band coming across the lake, you will arrive at a spot that is completely devoid of life. Walk softly, and the fish will still be there waiting for you. We really need to talk about what you are tying onto the end of your line. In the dead of winter, using a heavy, aggressive jigging spoon or a large rattle bait is a fantastic way to call in fish from a distance. The loud thump and the heavy vibrations trigger aggressive reaction strikes. But carrying that exact same aggressive tackle box into late March is a massive error. When the water is clear, the ice is thin, and the fish are already on edge from all the extra light, dropping a heavy chunk of lead into the water is the equivalent of throwing a brick into a bathtub. The moment that heavy lure hits the water and plummets to the bottom, the splash and the thud send out an alarming shockwave. Instead of ringing the dinner bell, you are sounding the retreat alarm. The fish do not want loud and aggressive right now. They want subtle, quiet, and natural. You have to drastically downsize your presentation. Put away the heavy spoons and the rattling baits. Tie on a tiny tungsten jig with a delicate plastic tail or a single wax worm When you drop your bait down the hole, do not just let it free fall and crash into the bottom. Feather the spool of your reel. Let the bait slowly flutter down through the water column, imitating a tiny bug naturally falling through the water. A quiet, stealthy presentation is the only way to fool these highly educated, hyper-aware, late-season fish into biting. It is not just the size of the lure that causes problems, it is exactly how you are moving it. We all get into a certain rhythm when we are ice fishing. You drop the bait down, you give the rod 3 hard rips, and you pause. That aggressive jigging cadence works beautifully when you are trying to wake up lethargic fish in deep, dark water. But under thin March ice, that fast, erratic movement is highly unnatural and extremely off-putting. Imagine you are a fish sitting in a bright, clear, shallow environment. Suddenly, a tiny bug starts darting up and down at lightning speed, shaking violently. Bugs and small bait fish do not act like that naturally unless they are completely panicked, which usually means a predator is nearby. The aggressive jigging makes the fish nervous. They might swim over to look at it out of pure curiosity, but they will not commit to eating it. If you see a thick red line on your sonar screen staring at your bait, and they just will not bite, it is time to stop moving the rod entirely. Just hold it completely still. Let the natural slight shake of your hand give the bait a microscopic quiver. Sometimes, the best possible presentation under late ice is absolutely no presentation at all. Force yourself to slow down, kill the aggressive movements, and let the fish confidently approach a bait that looks like an easy, unthreatening meal. One of the biggest shifts in late-season ice fishing is where the fish are actually located. As the snow melts and the water begins to warm up ever so slightly, the fish start migrating out of the deep winter basins. They begin moving toward the shallow bays, the weed lines, and the sand flats. They are preparing for the upcoming spring spawn. This means you are no longer fishing in 30 feet of water. You might be fishing in 4 feet of water. This shallow water dynamic changes absolutely everything about how you need to behave. When you are fishing deep, you have a massive buffer of water between you and the fish. That buffer absorbs your mistakes, your noise, and your shadows. But when you are sitting in 4 feet of water, there is practically zero separation between the bottom of your boots and the top of the fish. You are right in their living room. In shallow water under thin ice, every single mistake is amplified. If you drop your ice scoop, they hear it. If you kick a chunk of ice, they feel it. If you stand up too fast, they see it. You have to treat shallow water fishing with the utmost respect and stealth. You cannot just plop your bucket down and start making a racket. You need to approach these shallow zones like you are trying to sneak up on a sleeping dog. If you do not respect the shallow water dynamics, you will push every single fish out into the deep water before you even wet a line. There is an ongoing debate in the fishing community about whether or not fish can actually hear the pinging sound of a sonar transducer. In deep winter, most guys will tell you it does not matter at all. But let us look at the reality of fishing under late ice in shallow water. Your sonar unit works by sending rapid pulses of acoustic energy down to the bottom and reading the bounce back. While we cannot hear these frequencies above the ice, some highly pressured fish, especially in shallow, clear water, can absolutely sense that unnatural clicking energy. If you are fishing a highly pressured lake where every fish has been pinged by a dozen different electronics all winter long, they start associating that acoustic pressure with danger. I have seen it happen countless times. You drop the transducer in, turn the machine on, and watch the fish slowly fade away from the screen. They just slowly drift out of the cone angle. If you are fishing in super shallow water under thin ice and the bite is incredibly tough, try turning your electronics completely off. Pull the transducer out of the water. Go back to basics. Watch your rod tip, use a spring bobber, and rely on your instincts. By removing that constant acoustic pressure from the water column, you allow the fish to relax and return to their natural feeding state. Sometimes unplugging from technology is the ultimate stealth move. Let us talk about the simple act of managing your gear around the hole. It is so easy to get careless. You drill your hole, you clear some slush, and then you just toss your metal ice scoop onto the hard ice. Clang! You grab your pliers to unhook a fish, and you drop them next to your bucket. Clank! You get up to stretch your legs, and you kick a loose chunk of frozen ice across the slick surface. Skitter! Every single one of these actions seems completely harmless to you. But remember the drum effect we talked about earlier. When you drop a hard metal tool onto bare, thin march ice, it creates a sharp, cracking acoustic wave that shoots straight to the bottom. It is the exact opposite of stealth. To avoid this, you need to set up a silent workspace. Bring a small rubber mat or an old towel to lay out next to your hole. When you finish using your ice scoop or your pliers, gently place them on the towel. When you stand up, look where you are stepping to make sure you do not kick any loose ice chunks. It requires a conscious effort to change these deeply ingrained, careless habits. But when you realize that dropping your pliers just cost you a trophy fish that was slowly creeping up on your bait, you will start treating your gear with a lot more care. A silent footprint on the ice is one of the deadliest weapons a late-season fisherman can possibly have in his arsenal. Many of us love the comfort of a pop-up ice shelter or a flip-over shanty. They keep the wind off your back and hold the heat in nicely. But how you position your shelter on thin ice can absolutely ruin your chances of catching fish. The common mistake is drilling a hole, popping the shelter directly over it, and settling in. Here is the problem. When you sit inside a shelter, you shift your weight in your chair. The fabric flaps in the wind. The metal poles squeak and groan. The bottom frame rubs against the bare ice. All of these micro vibrations are transferred directly into the ice, right above the exact spot where you are trying to catch fish. If you are fishing in a shallow bay, setting your loud, creaky shelter directly over their heads will keep them far away. The professional move is to use your shelter as a base camp, not a blind. Set your shelter up about 20 or 30 feet away from your primary fishing holes. Keep your heater, your snacks, and your extra gear inside the tent. But when it is time to actually fish, you step outside, walk softly over to your pre-drilled hole, and sit on a simple, quiet bucket. By separating your noisy moving shelter from your actual strike zone, you create a silent buffer. You stay warm between bites, but you keep the pressure off the fish when your line is actually in the water. It is a slight adjustment that pays massive dividends. Fishing is supposed to be a fun, social activity. We go out there with our buddies, we drink coffee, and we talk loudly across the ice about the weather, the sports scores, and the fish we lost last week. But we really need to look at how our voices interact with the late-season environment. When there is no snow on the ice to muffle the sound, and the ice is a thin, vibrating sheet, the low-frequency resonance of a deep human voice carries remarkably well. If you're sitting on a bucket, talking loudly to your friend who is 30 feet away, those sound waves hit the hard ice and travel down into the water. We are not saying the fish understand English, but they certainly feel the unnatural, rhythmic vibrations of human speech echoing through the water column. If you are sitting in a shallow weed bed, trying to coax a skittish, highly pressured fish into biting, having a booming conversation is completely counterproductive. You do not have to take a vow of silence, but you do need to use your indoor voice. Keep the radio turned off. Talk quietly. Enjoy the natural silence of the morning. When you stop yelling across the frozen lake and start treating the area like a quiet library, you will be absolutely amazed at how much more relaxed the fish become. The less unnatural noise you push into their environment, the more willing they are to feed aggressively. Let us clear up a major point of confusion. Many guys will say, well, the ice cracks and booms naturally all day long, and the fish do not care about that, so why should they care about my footsteps? It is a fair question, but it completely misses the point. Yes, as the temperature changes, the ice naturally expands and contracts. It groans, it pops, and it sends massive booming sounds across the lake. The fish are completely used to these low-frequency, natural sounds. It is part of their daily environment. But natural ice expansion sounds completely different from human-made, high-frequency noises. The crunch of metal spikes, the grinding of an auger blade, the sharp clank of dropped pliers, or the dragging rumble of a plastic sled are entirely alien to the underwater world. Fish are masters of identifying what belongs in their environment and what does not. They ignore the deep booms of shifting ice, but they immediately panic at the unnatural scrape of a boot. You cannot use natural ice noises as an excuse to be loud and sloppy. You have to understand that you are the alien in their world, and every sound you make is a bright red warning flag. Stop telling yourself that the fish do not care because the ice is cracking. They know exactly what you are, and they know exactly where you are. Your job is to make them forget you are there. This is perhaps the hardest mistake for impatient fishermen to fix. You finally reach your spot, you drill your hole as quietly as possible, you clear just enough slush, and then immediately you drop your bait down the hole. You stare at the screen, waiting for a fish to instantly bite. But nothing happens. Why? Because you completely forgot to let the hole rest. Even if you were as quiet as a mouse, the simple act of walking into the area and drilling a hole caused a disturbance. The fish that were there have backed off. They are sitting 20 or 30 feet away, watching and waiting to see what happens next. When you immediately drop a bait into the water, you are just extending the disturbance. The smartest thing you can possibly do is absolutely nothing. After you drill your holes, walk away. Go back to your sled. Pour yourself a cup of coffee. Tie a new jig onto your rod. Give the area at least 15 to 20 minutes of complete silence. Let the underwater environment return to normal. Let the fish realize that the perceived danger has passed. They will slowly start creeping back into the area they were just spooked from. When you finally come back to the hole, do it softly and drop your bait in quietly. I guarantee you will find fish waiting there that would have completely vanished if you had dropped your line the exact second you finished drilling. Because of modern electronics, we have developed a terrible habit of constantly chasing fish. We see a mark on the screen, and if it moves away, we immediately want to drill another hole to chase it down. On thick mid-winter ice, this run-and-gun approach works. But on late, thin ice, chasing a fish is the absolute best way to guarantee you never catch it. Every time you move, every time you drill, you are just pushing that skittish fish further and further away. It becomes a game of cat and mouse that you will always lose. Instead of acting like a predator actively hunting prey, you need to adopt the mindset of an ambush hunter. You must trust your initial location. If you know a shallow weed flat holds fish, drill your few holes early, set up quietly, and just wait. Let the fish do the swimming. Let them cruise through their natural patrol routes. If you sit completely still and keep the noise to zero, the fish will naturally cycle through your area. It requires a tremendous amount of patience to sit at a dead hole and wait for the fish to come to you. But on late spring ice, it is the only highly effective strategy. Stop chasing ghosts across the lake. Pick a high percentage spot, be stealthy, and let the fish bring themselves to your bait. You will catch significantly larger fish this way. Let us talk a little deeper about the physical pressure wave your body creates. It is not just about the noise. It is about the actual displacement of energy. When you stand on thin ice, your body weight presses down on a very specific point. As you walk, that pressure point moves, creating a subtle but very real bow wave underneath the ice. It is like pushing down on a waterbed. In shallow water, this pressure wave pushes directly against the bottom of the lake and sweeps across the weed beds. Fish have highly sensitive organs designed specifically to detect these subtle changes in water pressure. It is how they find prey in the dark, and it is how they avoid predators. When you are marching back and forth between your fishing holes, checking lines, and looking for action, you are constantly sending these warning waves through the water. A fish might be slowly swimming toward your bait, completely relaxed, and suddenly they feel the pressure wave of you walking over to check your rod. The change in pressure tells them something huge is moving above them. They instantly abort the feeding mission and bolt for the deep water. The rule is simple. Once you commit to a hole, you sit down and you stop moving. You minimize your footprint. You become a statue. The less physical pressure you put on the thin ice, the more natural the underwater environment remains. We have covered noise, shadow, and vibration. Now we need to cover the visual aspect of what you are actually wearing. Ice fishing gear is notoriously bright. We wear bright red jackets, neon yellow bibs, and reflective safety striping. In the dark days of winter or during a massive snowstorm, this bright gear is essential for safety and visibility. But think about the scenario we are discussing. The snow is gone. The ice is clear like a freshly washed window. The sun is shining brightly. If you walk onto that clear ice wearing a glowing neon yellow suit, you are broadcasting a visual warning sign to every fish within a 50-yard radius. Fish are highly visual creatures, especially in the clear water of late spring. They look up toward the surface constantly, looking for silhouettes and movement. A giant glowing neon figure pacing back and forth on clear ice is highly unnatural. While I would never tell you to compromise your personal safety, you might want to think about throwing a darker, neutral-colored layer over your brightest gear if you are fishing in shallow, crystal-clear water. Wear an olive or gray hoodie over your bright bibs when you are actively sitting on the bucket. Blend in with the sky and the background as much as possible. It sounds absolutely crazy, but managing your visual footprint is just another critical layer of the ultimate stealth approach. We have broken down every little detail, from the rumbling of your sled to the color of your jacket. But the absolute biggest mistake you can make under thinning March ice is refusing to change your fundamental mindset. You cannot cling to the comfort of the strategies that worked for you in January. The lake is a completely different living organism now. The ice has changed, the light has changed, the water temperature is shifting, and the fish are in a totally different state of mind. They are highly educated, they are on high alert, and they are preparing for spring. If you stubbornly walk out there and drill 30 holes, drop a massive heavy spoon down a completely cleared hole, and stomp around like you own the place, you are going to get skunked. And you will sit there blaming the weather, the barometric pressure, or the fish themselves. But the harsh reality is that the problem is entirely in your approach. You have to swallow your pride, slow down, and respect the changing conditions. Treat late-season ice fishing like a tactical stealth operation. Move quietly, drill sparingly, present your bait naturally, and use the utmost patience. When you finally make this mental shift, you will stop spooking fish and start catching those massive late-season trophies that everyone else is completely driving away. It is all in your head. Change your mind, and you will change your catch. So, let us bring it all together. The most unexpected turning point in this entire discussion is the realization that the ice itself becomes your absolute worst enemy in March. It is no longer a thick protective shield that hides your mistakes. It transforms into a thin, clear, vibrating drum that magnifies every single shadow, scrape, and drop tool straight down to the fish. When you finally accept this reality, it creates a massive shift in how you operate. You stop acting like a heavy-footed construction worker drilling a dozen holes, and you start acting like a silent bow hunter patiently waiting in an ambush spot. This changes absolutely everything about your late-season fishing. You will stop wondering why the fish vanished and start watching them confidently bite your perfectly presented quiet jig. I really want to thank you for taking the time to watch and learn today. If this video opened your eyes to a few bad habits, hit that subscribe button right now so you do not miss our next tactical breakdown. Please leave a like on the video to help the channel grow and jump into the comment section right now. Tell me, what is the most ridiculous, loudest mistake you have ever seen another fisherman make on the ice? Let us get a great discussion going down there, and I will see you on the next adventure.